watery horizon. Tomorrow she must make a point of being here earlier to watch it go down. March days were short, but by June, when she returned with her students, sunset would be late and lingering as long summer evenings merged with the early dawn. And once the planned dig started, there would be less time to savour such moments. A breeze roughened the water, and she pulled her jacket close, then shut her eyes and filled her lungs, absorbing the rank smell of high-tide seaweed and salty turf. Ullaness-a, a place of legend. She could almost hear Ulla's name whispering through the marram grasses. There was an awesome beauty to the place, and she looked up, seeing gulls blown landward by the wind wheeling above her, their wingtips catching the moonlight against a darkening sky. Others circled out to sea, beyond the grey shapes of distant stacks, heading for the horizon over which lay the next landfall, 2,000 miles away. She had checked once in an atlas and been disappointed to find that if you followed the line of latitude eastwards from her grandmother's home on Newfoundland's broken coast, it went well south of Ullaness, south of Scotland, in fact, to pass through the English Channel. And if you drew a line due west across the ocean from Ullaness, it fell north of that tiny maritime harbour where she had spent her childhood summers, and went way up, above the tip of the Labrador coast, and entered the icy Hudson Strait. At the time, this had seemed wrong. It should be possible to draw a line across the Atlantic over the arc of the globe and link the headland at Ullaness directly with Goss Harbour, as her grandmother's stories had done. But then again, she thought, nothing in her grandmother's stories made a straight connection either. She could hardly believe she was here. The place was etched so deeply into her psyche, it was almost part of her being. Familiar and yet quite unknown. She watched as a string of seabirds flying low above the ocean rose to become silhouettes against clouds, now edge-lit by moonlight. What a sight! Timeless and unchanging. It must have looked the same to the nomadic people who once came here to gather shellfish, and to those who followed them and then settled and built houses. Tides and time had sculpted the shoreline, but this view must be unaltered, and Libby felt the centuries shrink around her. Ulla herself must once have stood here, 1,000 years ago. And Ellen, too, her grandmother's grandmother, whose stories of Ulla had been woven into Libby's childhood, and she wondered again at the darker threads in the weave. Generations might divide them, but standing here now she felt herself bound by the connection to both these women, held by a sense of otherworldliness in the strange stillness of the place. The archaeological work planned for the summer might throw light on Ulla's legend, but Libby had her own reasons for being here, her own questions to ask. In a few hours, dawn would filter through her grandmother's bedroom window on the far side of the Atlantic, and the old lady would stir in her bed, emerging from under her gaily coloured quilts. As a child, in the summer holidays, Libby loved to go with her at daybreak, hand in hand, down to the fishing stages to watch the Goss Harbour boats set off, laden with crab and lobster pots, the chill morning air laced with salt and diesel. And when the boats had gone, she would sit on the wooden landing, leaning her head against the mooring post, her short legs dangling, and think of the stories the old woman had told her. Of Ulla and of Ellen, who had come from Scotland, bringing the stories with her. And in her childish mind, the two women had become hopelessly entangled, existing in a place she could only imagine, 2,000 miles away across the ocean in Scotland. And Libby had felt that Ulla must have been as good as she was beautiful. A lovely Norsewoman, blown in on a ship by the north wind, her dying lover beside her, fleeing her husband's wrath. In her picture book of legends there was an illustration of the fabled Isolde, and Libby had imagined Ulla to be like her, tall and slender and very beautiful, while Oran, the legendary monk, would have been as handsome as the knightly Tristan. The legend of Ulla had, for Libby, been as compelling as that of those star-crossed lovers, all the more so because it was personal, as Ellen's stories had connected her to this place, Ullaness, where the legend had been born. It was only later that her grandmother had explained about Ellen's final years, when all was neither beautiful nor good. Libby rose, reminding herself that she